I want you to just put yourself in this scenario for a second. Imagine you are sweating in the absolute baking sun of southern Spain.
Oh, yeah. Brutal heat.
Exactly. Brutal. Your hands are stained, your back is aching, and you are just staring out at an olive grove.
Mhm.
And, this is land your family has worked for 3 generations.
Right. It's your whole life.
And the margins are just brutally thin, like one bad frost, one new pest, or even just a sudden drop in global olive oil prices, and you lose everything.
You lose the land, the machines, your actual home.
Yeah, you are operating on the razor's edge of survival.
It is a terrifying way to live, honestly. The stress is generational. It sits at the dinner table with you every single night.
So, keeping that fear in your mind, imagine a government official drives down your dirt road. He steps out of his car and hands you a legally binding contract.
Okay.
And he says, I am here to completely eliminate your commercial risk.
Yeah.
He tells you that if you sign this piece of paper, your business is guaranteed a protected price for its olives forever.
Wow. Forever.
Forever. Market drops won't affect you at all. Furthermore, you will pay absolutely 0 taxes for the next 10 years.
0. That's wild.
Right. And after a decade, your tax rate is permanently slashed in half.
He is essentially offering you like an armor-plated financial bunker, total immunity from the brutal realities of agricultural capitalism.
It's literally an infinite money glitch handed to you on a silver platter. I mean, there is no rational universe where you don't break your wrist trying to sign that contract as fast as physically possible.
You have to be crazy not to.
Exactly. If you reject it, you are actively choosing to increase your chances of going completely bankrupt. You would have to be out of your mind to say no.
Well, according to every mainstream economics textbook sitting in every Ivy League university on the planet, you would be utterly, hopelessly irrational.
But the reality, and the reason we are doing this deep dive today is that the vast majority of the world's most common business structure looks at this exact golden ticket, stares the government official dead in the eye, and coldly rejects it.
They do. They willingly, almost enthusiastically, choose the edge of the abyss over guaranteed riches.
And we aren't talking about like a fringe minority of weirdly stubborn farmers here, right?
No, not at all. We are talking about family-owned firms. Family-controlled businesses make up over 80% of all firms globally.
80%?
Yeah, over 80%. We are talking about the absolute bedrock of the global economy. Most of the businesses on Earth are quietly operating on a logic that the brightest economic minds have just fundamentally misunderstood for decades.
And that is the mission for today. We are going to unpack this monumental 54-year tracking study. It was published in the Administrative Science Quarterly by Gomez-Mejia and a team of world-class management scholars.
It's an incredible piece of research.
It really is. It's basically a brilliant statistical slap in the face to conventional wisdom. But before we get to their data, I need to understand how the textbooks got this so incredibly backward. Because my instinct, and I'm sure the instinct of anyone listening right now, is that family businesses are conservative, like they play it safe.
And that instinct is exactly what traditional theory, specifically something called agency theory, has been preaching for nearly a century.
Okay, agency theory.
Yeah. Scholars like Laporta, Mork, and Young, they champion this idea. And they painted family firms with a very specific and, frankly, insulting brush.
Insulting how?
Well, the established academic view basically branded them as backward, overly cautious, and just terrified of risk.
I mean, I can kind of see the logic, though. If I'm a CEO of a massive public corporation, my personal wealth is diversified.
Exactly. You have stock options, real estate.
A massive severance package. If the company takes a huge risk and goes bankrupt, I get fired. But I'm still rich. I just go to another company.
Precisely. Your portfolio is diversified. But look at the family firm.
Right.
The theory goes that because a family has literally all its wealth tied up in one single entity, meaning their portfolio is completely undiversified, they are uniquely vulnerable.
They have all their eggs in one basket.
Every single egg. If the company fails, they don't just lose a stock investment. They lose their home. They lose their livelihood. They lose their children's inheritance.
It's the equivalent of a timid gambler at a casino.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Right. Like, they refuse to leave the penny slides because those pennies are the only money they have left in their pocket to pay for the bus ride home.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if you offer them a seat at the high-stakes table where the odds are massively in their favor, they won't sit down. They just can't afford the buy-in.
So economists slapped this giant weakness label on them. They just assumed this extreme concentration of wealth paralyzes the family.
It makes them cowards.
Right. The academic consensus actually went so far as to argue that the domination of family businesses could retard overall economic growth.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
They thought family businesses were holding the whole economy back.
They did. They believed these firms were simply too cowardly to innovate, too timid to take the necessary risks to push the economy forward. They assumed human behavior was just a simple, binary calculation of financial self-interest.
Well, the historical data from this study absolutely incinerates that assumption.
It destroys it.
And the researchers didn't just look at a couple of years of stock market data. They didn't just, send out a survey with multiple choice questions. They went straight to the battleground.
Jaén province in Andalusia, southern Spain.
Yeah. And it is the perfect petri dish for this kind of economic research.
Yeah.
Jaén is this landscape of grueling, sun-drenched olive groves.
And olives are a pure commodity.
Which means what exactly for the farmers?
Which means the market is totally unforgiving. You are at the absolute mercy of weather patterns, crop diseases, and wild, unpredictable price fluctuations on the global market.
It's basically a roller coaster you can't get off. And the researchers manually tracked 1,237 independent, family-owned olive oil mills.
The scale is just unbelievable.
I really want that to sink in for you listening. They went through dusty government registries, year by year, spanning more than half a century, from 1944 to 1998.
The methodological rigor is just staggering. Think about the historical span of those 54 years in Spain.
Right. There was a lot going on.
A lot. We are starting in 1944, which is deep in the isolation of the Franco dictatorship, moving through the economic stabilization plans, the whole transition to democracy in the late 70s, all the way to Spain's integration into the modern European Union.
And through all those political eras, all those economic cycles and technological shifts, they track these families.
Year by year.
And this massive time frame is what allowed them to expose what they call the golden trap.
Yeah.
Because this is where the Andalusian regional government steps in with that contract we talked about at the start.
Yeah. Andalusia historically struggled with severe economic challenges and high unemployment. So the government decided to intervene.
They wanted to stabilize things.
Exactly. They offered these farmers a safe harbor by encouraging them to join a cooperative.
Now, when I hear the word cooperative, I usually think of like a tiny local grocery store where everyone volunteers for 3 hours a week to sell organic carrots.
Yeah, no, that's not what this is.
That's not what we're talking about here, right?
Not at all. A cooperative in this context is a massive, government-backed, collective industrial organization. By joining, the individual family mill becomes a legally bound part of a protected, state-subsidized entity.
Okay, I want to be incredibly specific about the incentives here. Because earlier I called it an infinite money glitch, and I stand by that. Let's break it down.
Let's do it.
Number one, if you join this cooperative, you receive a 10-year total tax exemption. Let's just pause on that. 0 taxes for a decade.
I mean, for a business operating on thin agricultural margins where every penny dictates whether you can feed your kids, a decade of no taxes is a life-changing windfall.
But wait, it doesn't stop. Number two, after that 10-year grace period, you get a permanent 50% tax cut compared to standard corporate rates. And number three, the government also hands out direct subsidies to the cooperatives to buy brand new, state-of-the-art extracting equipment and fertilizers.
Which is incredibly expensive gear.
Exactly. And then there was the financing. Because independent farmers in the mid-20th century were often at the mercy of predatory local lenders, right?
Oh, absolutely. Or they had to go beg extended family for cash just to fix a broken press.
Right. But if you join the cooperative, you get unlimited low-interest loans from the local credit unions. The vault is just open for you.
It's essentially free capital.
But the absolute crown jewel of this offer is the price protection. The cooperative completely absorbs all market volatility.
This is the big one.
Yeah. If there is a massive bumper crop that crashes global olive oil prices, you don't go bankrupt. The cooperative pays you a guaranteed protected rate based strictly on the weight of the olives you drop off.
Your commercial risk is mathematically reduced to absolute zero.
So rationally, you sign it. The spreadsheet dictates that you take the money, secure your family's future, and sleep peacefully at night knowing the government is carrying your risk.
That is what any rational actor would do.
But over 90% of these family businesses said no.
More than 9 out of 10.
That is just, it's insane.
Across a sample of over 1,000 businesses, over 54 years of tracking, the vast majority looked at a flawless financial safety net, basically threw it in the dirt and chose to fight in the open market with zero subsidies, zero tax breaks, and zero price protection.
The first time I read that, I genuinely thought there had to be a typo in the paper.
It's hard to believe.
It is a complete collapse of common sense. I mean, why would you willingly choose to swim with sharks when there is a heavily guarded, heated swimming pool right next to you? What could possibly drive that level of financial self-sabotage?
Well, to the traditional economists, this looks like mass insanity. It completely breaks their models. But the researchers realized that these families were not insane.
Okay, then what were they?
They were simply operating on an entirely different accounting system. They were not calculating financial wealth. They were calculating socioemotional wealth, or SEW.
Socioemotional wealth. I mean, it sounds like academic jargon, but it's actually incredibly profound once you dig into it.
It really is.
It's the invisible, untouchable capital that sits on the balance sheet of the owner's soul. It's the asset the spreadsheet is completely blind to.
Exactly. And when we break down this invisible capital, we realize it has absolutely nothing to do with maximizing profit. It is a multi-dimensional set of human needs.
So what are the pillars of this?
First and foremost, it is about family control and unquestioned authority.
Right, being the boss.
Yes, it's the deep psychological utility of being the master of your own destiny. When you own the mill, you make the final call. You don't answer to anyone.
It's the pride of walking onto the dirt and knowing every single tree is yours to command. But it goes deeper than just being the boss, doesn't it? It's tied to their actual names.
Completely intertwined. The second pillar of socio-emotional wealth is identity and self-concept. In these Andalusian towns, the business literally is the family.
So the sign above the door.
The sign above the wooden door literally says Brothers of Garcia, or heirs of Martinez. Their social status in the community, their respect, their self-esteem, it's all inextricably linked to that specific mill.
So if you walk up to one of these farmers in the town square and ask them who they are, they don't say, oh, I'm a guy who processes olives for a living.
No, they say, I am a Garcia and we run the Garcia mill. The business is the avatar of the family in the real world.
Wow. And what's the third pillar?
The third pillar is the emotional bonds and the perpetuation of a dynasty.
A dynasty.
Yeah, there is an immense, heavy fulfillment of obligations to the ancestors who built the mill with their bare hands. And equally, a moral, almost religious duty to hand that mill down intact to the children.
So the business is a vessel for family values. It's the physical manifestation of their bloodline. Okay, so when we look at the cooperative contract through this new lens, through the lens of socio-emotional wealth, the golden ticket suddenly looks like a death warrant.
It really does.
Because there is a hidden poison pill in that zero-tax utopia. To get the money, to get the absolute security, you have to sign away your soul.
That is the exact brutal trade-off. The government isn't just handing out free money out of the goodness of their hearts, you know? They demand absolute structural submission.
Submission.
Yeah. When you sign that cooperative contract, it is irrevocable. You permanently change your legal standing.
Let's talk about the specific terms of surrender here, because they are heavy.
They are.
First, you must permanently surrender the family name. The Garcia Mill ceases to exist. It becomes an anonymous, numbered unit of the cooperative. The sign literally comes off the wall.
That's a huge blow. And second, you are forced to sign an irrevocable non-compete clause. You must turn all your produce over to the coop, all of it. And in almost all cases, you literally have to transfer the property rights of your plant and your equipment to the cooperative.
Wait. The heavy machinery your grandfather bought, the press your father repaired?
It's not yours anymore. It belongs to the collective.
Oh, that is brutal. And your authority completely vanishes, right?
Right.
No matter how big your family mill was, no matter how much reverence your grandfather had in the town, you are reduced to one single vote in an assembly of hundreds.
Exactly. You are just a face in the crowd.
And worse, you are now taking orders from a hired professional CEO, like a guy in a suit who might not even be from the region.
Right. The cooperative sends out corporate inspectors, they call them interventors, to walk onto your land with a clipboard and ensure you are following their standardized cultivation methods.
Oh, man.
Their schedules, their chemical regimens.
I want you to just pause and think about how infuriating that must be. You've been working this land since you were 6 years old. You know the exact moisture of the soil. And some bureaucrat from the city walks onto your property and tells you how to prune your grandfather's trees.
For a patriarch of a family firm, it is an unbearable humiliation.
Right. Because to a classic economist, a business is a cash register. It's a machine for generating yield. But to these families, it's a living, breathing entity.
Yes.
Losing it, signing it over to an anonymous assembly of bureaucrats, isn't just a strategic bankruptcy. It's the erasure of their ancestors.
It is spiritual suicide. And the true brilliance of this paper is that the researchers didn't just sit in a faculty lounge theorizing about the poetry of family dignity.
Right, they didn't just guess.
They didn't just guess that this emotional connection mattered, they proved it mathematically.
Okay, this is where we get into the concept of quantifying dignity.
Yeah.
Because how do you put a number on stubbornness and pride?
It's a great question.
They use something called an event history analysis, specifically a Cox proportional hazards model. Now, I'm going to be honest, whenever I hear proportional hazards model, my eyes completely glaze over.
Oh, sure, it sounds incredibly dense.
So break this down for me. What exactly are they measuring with this?
Let's use a simple analogy. Imagine we want to measure the probability of an event happening over a specific timeline. Say, the probability of someone eventually selling their beloved vintage car.
Okay, I'm with you.
A hazard model calculates the baseline rate of that event occurring. In this study, the event is the business owner finally breaking down, giving up control, and signing the cooperative contract.
So it's measuring how long it takes for them to crack.
Exactly. The model tracks the waiting time until this surrender occurs year after year for 54 years.
Okay, so they establish a baseline probability of a normal, non-family firm joining the coup. And then they look at the family firms. What did the numbers actually show?
Well, in statistical modeling, you look at a coefficient to see how strongly a specific variable pushes the outcome. In their model, the family ownership variable carried a coefficient of negative 4.47.
Negative 4.47. Okay, I know it's a negative number, which means it suppresses the event. But give me some context here. Is that a minor bump or a massive wall?
In the context of sociological data, it is a statistical steel wall.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. Imagine the baseline probability of surrendering control is just resting at 0. A coefficient of negative 4.47 means the chance is pushed so staggeringly far below 0 that you would essentially need to put a gun to the owner's head to get them to sign the paper.
Wow.
The significance level of this finding is literally off the charts. It mathematically proves a near-fanatical obsession with keeping the family in charge, regardless of the financial devastation it causes.
So the math literally proves that they value their pride over guaranteed wealth.
Without a doubt.
But I have to challenge this a little bit. Surely this fanaticism can't last forever, right? Like, if my grandfather builds a business, he bleeds for it. But by the time I inherit it, I went to business school in Madrid, I live in an apartment, I don't care about the vintage olive press the same way he did.
That makes total sense.
Right. If you offer me a government buyout, I'm taking the cash. So does the data account for this kind of generational decay?
It absolutely does, and your intuition is spot on. The data revealed that this iron-willed obsession with control dilutes with the bloodline.
Oh, it does?
Yeah. The researchers brilliantly categorized the family firms into 3 distinct stages of their life cycle, and they watched how the resistance to the cooperative decayed over the generations.
Oh, fascinating. What does that decay look like mathematically?
So stage 1 is the founding family. This is the era where the mill is owned and managed by the original founder, the person who poured the concrete. Exactly. Here, the socioemotional wealth is at its absolute peak. The business and the founder's identity are completely inseparable, and the data reflects this. The resistance coefficient here is at its fiercest, at negative 4.86.
Negative 4.86. So they'll practically die before surrendering control.
They are completely fused with the machine, but then the founder passes away, and we enter stage 2.
Okay, what happens in stage 2?
Stage 2 is the extended family or siblings. The business is now owned jointly by, say, the brothers of or the heirs of the founder, and in this stage, the resistance drops.
How much?
The coefficient weakens from negative 4.86 to negative 3.68.
Okay, negative 3.68. I mean, that's still a massive wall of resistance, but you can see the cracks forming.
Exactly. The socio-emotional bond is still strong, but it's fractioned. The family, as a monolithic, single-minded entity, is starting to lose its absolute grip. There might be a brother who wants to cash out, or a sister who wants the cooperative subsidies to pay for her kid's school.
That makes perfect sense. And then we hit stage 3.
Stage 3 is the cousin consortium, or professional managers.
The cousin consortium. I love that term.
It's very descriptive. The ownership is now spread across a wide, extended family, many of whom aren't even involved in the day-to-day dirt and sweat of the mill. They might live in the city, exactly like your analogy,
You're right.
and to run the place, they've hired an outside, non-family executive.
And what happens to the math here?
The resistance decays further, dropping to negative 3.19. The data shows a clear stair-step decline in their willingness to fight the cooperative.
So as the firm transitions further away from the original blood and sweat of the founder, the emotional capital just dissipates.
Exactly.
As the blood ties get thinner, the calculator gets louder. The cousins who just collect a dividend check care a lot more about profit margins than protecting the grandfather's pride.
Yep, the emotional attachment fades.
But I think it's vital to point out that even at stage 3, a coefficient of negative 3.19 means they are still vastly more stubborn than a standard non-family corporation. Like, they still have an irrational attachment.
They do. Even diluted family pride is an overwhelmingly powerful force. But, this brings us to the dark, inescapable consequence of this behavior.
Right, the cost.
Yeah. If they are this stubborn, if they are mathematically proven to reject free money and guaranteed survival just to protect their dignity, what is the actual physical price they pay in the real world?
What happens when you spit in the face of the market, reject government subsidies, and try to go it alone against competitors who are playing with house money?
The answer is ruin.
Ruin.
The data doesn't just show that they are stubborn, it shows that their stubbornness is mathematically suicidal. The researchers analyzed the probability of outright bankruptcy.
And what did they find?
They found that family firms that chose to retain control bore a significantly higher coefficient, plus 0.66, for the probability of total failure compared to the non-family firms or those that joined the coup.
Plus 0.6. I just want to let that sit for a second. By choosing to keep their name on the door, they are actively, aggressively increasing their chance of losing the door entirely.
It's a massive paradox. And it's not just the looming threat of an eventual bankruptcy. Their day-to-day, year-to-year performance plummets too.
How bad is it?
The study looked at target achievement. They measured how well the firm performed compared to its own historical past, and how it performed compared to the industry average of other mills. On both fronts, the family firms that stayed independent performed drastically worse.
So they are literally bleeding to death year after year, producing less just to pay the premium for their emotional asset.
Exactly. They are subsidizing their pride with their actual survival.
This is the cognitive paradox that completely shatters those textbook theories we talked about at the beginning. Remember, the arrogant economists said family firms are cowards. They said they are conservative risk avoiders because all their wealth is tied up in one place.
Right, the timid gambler theory.
But the reality is so much weirder. To understand how insane this behavior really is, you have to break risk down into two distinct categories.
Yes, this is a brilliant conceptual leap by the researchers. They bifurcated the concept of risk into two types: performance hazard and venturing risk.
Okay, let's look at performance hazard first.
This is essentially survival risk. It's the risk of catastrophic negative consequences, of going bankrupt, of falling terribly below your financial targets.
And on this front, family firms are absolute lunatics. They're insane risk seekers.
You really are.
They are willing to gamble their actual literal survival. They will accept a massive performance hazard if it means they get to stay in control of the mill. They aren't cowards at all. They're kamikazes diving into the ground to protect their socio-emotional wealth.
That is perfectly stated. But then there is the second type of risk, venturing risk.
What's that?
This is exploration risk. It's the variance in performance that comes from trying new, uncertain business moves. It's adopting an untested olive extraction technology, entering a new export market, or completely changing the product line.
Okay, and how do family firms act here?
Here on venturing risk, family firms are ultra-conservative. They are terrified. They absolutely refuse to rock the boat.
Why? If they're willing to bet the farm on staying independent, why are they scared of a new machine?
Because they know they are already playing a highly dangerous, suicidal game by staying independent. They have already accepted a massive survival risk just to keep their autonomy. If they start gambling on wild, unproven new ventures on top of that, they might trigger the very bankruptcy they are desperately trying to stave off.
Oh man, so it's a complete 180-degree slap in the face to the traditional view. You think they are conservative. No, they are absolute maniacs at the poker table when it comes to betting their survival on their family pride. But they are totally terrified to change the menu at their restaurant.
Exactly.
They'll bet the house just to keep the house,
Huh.
but they won't spend a single dime to paint it a new color.
That is exactly the dynamic. And this brings us to one of the most fascinating behavioral discoveries in the entire paper. It's about how these specific firms act when things start going fundamentally wrong.
Oh, this is good.
It's a behavioral phenomenon that researchers relate to something called the March suppression effect.
Okay, I really want to dig into this because this is where human psychology gets grim. Let's set the baseline first. How do normal, soulless corporate firms act when they start losing money? In behavioral economics, there's a classic concept called the U-shaped curve, right?
Right. Think of a standard, publicly traded corporation that misses its quarterly earnings targets. The CEO looks at the spreadsheet and knows that if they just keep doing the same thing, they will continue to bleed out, the stock will tank, and they will get fired by the board.
They're backed into a corner.
Right. So what do? To twist out of a loss, they panic. They start making wild, high-risk, high-variance investments.
It's the classic corporate casino mentality. You're down at the blackjack table, so you start doubling your bets, hoping to hit a massive home run to cover your losses.
Exactly. The worse their historical performance gets, the higher their venturing risk goes. The line on the graph swoops up into a massive U-shape.
Okay, so that's the expected, rational behavior for a firm without emotional baggage. You gamble to get out of the hole. But what happened when the researchers plotted the data for the family firms in Spain?
That U-shaped curve was completely crushed flat.
Crushed flat, the family iron law. Even when their historical performance was a total, unmitigated disaster, like when they were losing money hand over fist, these family firms adamantly refused to gamble on new ventures.
They wouldn't budge. The researchers found an incredible interaction effect in the data with a highly significant coefficient of negative 0.14.
Which is the mathematical proof of their ultimate restraint. Even while they are bleeding out, they sit perfectly still.
They do. And to explain the psychological mechanism of why this happens, the researchers point to a theory developed by management theorists James March and Zur Shapira.
The March suppression effect. Walk me through what is actually happening in the brain of the business owner when this kicks in.
Well, March and Shapira proposed that a firm's attention shifts dynamically depending on how close they are to the absolute edge of the cliff. When a firm is just a little bit below its target, it focuses on the aspiration. How do we get back to making a lot of money? And they might take small risks to get there. But as the firm approaches the absolute limit of survival, the sheer cliff edge of bankruptcy, the brain freezes.
It's a threat rigidity response. I imagine it like an animal in the wild. A gazelle is foraging, taking little risks to find food, but suddenly a lion appears 10 feet away.
Right.
The threat is so massive, so existential, that the gazelle doesn't try a creative new escape route. The system overloads and it just freezes. It plays dead. The focus snaps instantly from how do we thrive to how do we just stay alive?
That is the perfect metaphor. The threat to survival becomes so overwhelming that it suppresses all desire to explore or innovate.
So the family firms know that they are already in a highly vulnerable position because they rejected the cooperative subsidies.
Right. They know they're exposed.
They know that one bad bet on a new venture, one experimental crop that fails, wipes out their ancestors' legacy forever.
So they just sit still in the storm. They absorb the financial losses year after year, gripping the steering wheel until their knuckles are white, utterly terrified to turn left or right.
But wait, this creates a massive, glaring, logical problem in the data.
Exactly.
If they're consistently missing their targets, if they're stubbornly refusing to innovate or try new things, and if they're bleeding money because they rejected the government safety net, mathematically they should be extinct.
They should be totally wiped out.
How are there still thousands of them? How do they stay alive for decades? I mean, if a normal business loses money every year, the bank eventually forecloses.
Which brings us to the concept of the zombie firm. Sociologists Marshall Meyer and Lynn Zucker coined the term permanent failure to describe this exact phenomenon.
Permanent failure. That sounds grim.
It is a state characterized by sustained, objectively low performance but incredibly high persistence. The firm is functionally failing but structurally enduring. They just refuse to die.
But how is that physically possible? I mean, eventually the money runs out.
Because the secret of these family firms is that their life support isn't coming from bank loans. Their life support is blood.
Blood.
Yeah. They rely on something called patient capital or survivability capital.
The invisible pipelines keeping the zombie alive. I want to spend some real time on this because it's so fundamental to the human experience of a family business.
It really is.
Let's break down what this patient capital actually looks like behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Because it's not a financial instrument, it's emotional extortion.
That's a strong way to put it, but you're not wrong. First and foremost, it is family members working for vastly below market wages, or sometimes working entirely for free.
For free?
Yeah. If a normal, soulless corporation can't make payroll, the workers strike, the union protests, and the company folds. But if a family olive mill can't make payroll, the cousins, the children, the siblings, they just work harder for nothing.
It's the Thanksgiving dinner dynamic. Imagine sitting around the table and your uncle who runs the mill says, if we don't fix the press this weekend, we lose grandfather's business. You can't say no.
No, of course not.
You go out there on a Sunday and work a 12-hour shift for free because the emotional guilt of being the generation that lets the family name die is just too heavy to bear.
Exactly. The family bond is weaponized for survival. And the second pipeline of patient capital is tapping into the collective family savings.
Oh, wow.
Think about it. If a machine breaks down in a normal business, they go to a commercial bank and ask for a loan at 8% interest with a strict 24-month repayment plan.
Right, standard business stuff.
But if the family mill needs a machine, they don't go to the bank. They go to the grandmother's life savings. They dip into the uncle's retirement fund or the cousin's college savings.
And there is no interest rate on grandmother's savings. There's no strict repayment date. If it takes 20 years to pay her back, it takes 20 years.
She's not going to foreclose on her own grandson.
Yeah.
And the third element is a massive, irrational, selfless devotion to bailing out the legacy. The family will actively absorb immense personal financial pain, downgrading their own quality of life just to ensure the firm's survival.
I mean, let's pose the question to you, the listener, again. Would you work 60 hours a week in the baking Spanish sun, covered in grease and dust, for half the pay you could make doing an easy job down the street just to make sure your last name stays on a rusted sign above a door?
Most people would say no.
To a classic economist, that is pure lunacy.
Yeah.
But to these families, the answer is unconditionally, fiercely yes.
They are actively subsidizing the firm's market inefficiency with their own lives. This is the ultimate, undeniable proof that socioemotional wealth is real and that it carries a tangible, heavy price.
They are quite literally buying their dignity with their own sweat.
Exactly.
Now, I know someone listening to this right now might be thinking, okay, this is an incredible story about some stubborn olive farmers in a remote province in Spain during the 20th century. But what does this have to do with me? What does this have to do with the modern economy?
I get that reaction a lot.
We need to make it crystal clear that this is not a quirky historical anomaly, right?
Absolutely not. The implications of the study are entirely global, and they dictate the shape of the world we live in right now.
How so?
The researchers explicitly note that family influence is pervasive globally. In the United States alone, the study points out that 65% of mid-sized firms are family-controlled.
65%, so it's not just mom-and-pop corner stores.
No, even at the absolute highest echelons of modern capitalism, roughly 35% of the Fortune 500 are largely controlled by family interests.
Wait, 35% of the Fortune 500?
Yes, we are talking about the bedrock of the global economy, from giant, multi-billion-dollar multinational conglomerates in East Asia to the massive retail, media, and construction empires in America. This dynamic, the hidden calculus of socio-emotional wealth, is operating behind the scenes in boardroom decisions every single day.
That is wild. It forces us to completely redefine the word irrationality. For a century, economists have looked at these firms, seen their market inefficiency, seen their stubborn refusal to maximize pure financial profit, and coldly called them stupid.
But are they really stupid?
Exactly. Let me play devil's advocate against the economists here. Are these families stupid, or are they operating on a higher, multidimensional rationality?
That's the real question.
Think about it. Wealth is not just digital numbers on a bank screen.
Yeah.
What is the actual point of money? It's a tool to buy things that give you satisfaction, security, and happiness.
Right.
If an owner successfully uses their potential financial profits and their sweat to buy their family's dignity, their community identity, and their absolute independence from bureaucratic control,
Right.
isn't that a wildly successful investment?
It's a profound perspective shift. If the goal function of the business owner is not just maximize shareholder value at all costs, but rather preserve family heritage, status, and control, then their behavior is perfectly ruthlessly rational.
They're successfully maximizing the asset they care about most. They just happen to be paying for it with cash.
Precisely. And this brings up a massive, often completely ignored societal benefit that we lose sight of when we worship pure algorithmic efficiency.
Okay, what is that?
What actually happens to the world because of these stubborn, inefficient family firms? What is their impact on the towns and cities they operate in?
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
They become the strongest, most vital anchors in our society because they aren't blindly chasing short-term quarterly profits to appease Wall Street analysts, and because they value survival, loyalty, and community standing above all else. They behave very differently when a crisis hits.
Think about a standard recession. When the market dips, a soulless public corporation looks at the spreadsheet, sees a hit to their profit margin, and immediately executes cold-blooded mass layoffs to protect the stock price.
Right. They just cut the cord.
Thousands of people lose their livelihoods overnight, plunging the local economy into a death spiral.
But the family firm that relies on patient capital, that relies on the deep respect of the community to survive, they don't want the profound shame of firing their neighbors.
No, they don't.
They don't want to walk into the local bakery or the church knowing they just destroyed the livelihoods of the people sitting next to them in the pews. They don't want to tarnish the family name that hangs above their door.
So they absorb the blow, they take the financial hit directly to their own wealth, they keep the presses running, they keep people employed, even when a purely economic model tells them it is irrational to do so.
They provide a long-term, warm, protective net for local employment. They act as the shock absorbers of the global economy. By stubbornly clinging to their socio-emotional wealth, by refusing to be ruthlessly efficient, they accidentally provide an immense social welfare benefit to the rest of us.
The very inefficiency that the textbook economists decry as a weakness is actually the social glue that holds local economies together during the darkest times.
It's an incredible paradox. The system survives because of the parts that refuse to act rationally.
This journey has been absolutely mind-bending. I mean, we started with the arrogant assumptions of traditional economics, the idea that family firms are just timid, cowardly gamblers, too scared to take a risk because their portfolios aren't diversified.
And we followed the researchers right into the grueling olive groves of Spain, tracking over 1,000 firms across half a century, watching them stare down the golden trap of the government cooperative.
We saw the undeniable mathematical proof, that statistical steel wall of -4.47, proving that families will eagerly choose the abyss over surrendering their control, their identity, and their ancestral name.
We watched them bleed out, accepting massive risks of total bankruptcy while freezing like a deer in the headlights in the face of innovation, all to protect their socio-emotional wealth.
We uncovered the zombie firms, kept alive entirely by the blood, sweat, and Thanksgiving dinner guilt of patient capital, defying the laws of corporate gravity.
And finally, we realized that this so-called irrationality is actually the hidden warm heart of the global economy, providing stability, employment, and dignity in a world increasingly obsessed with cold, calculating efficiency.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought.
Yeah.
I want you to really mull this over as you go about your day.
It is perhaps the most vital question for the future of business.
We live in an era where modern capitalism, algorithmic models, and private equity firms are hunting down and exterminating every single ounce of inefficiency they can find.
That's true.
Every business everywhere is being pressured, squeezed, and optimized to become a ruthless, hyper-efficient, profit-maximizing machine. But as we wash away all the irrational family pride, as we erase the stubbornness, the emotional wealth, and the patient capital that holds communities together, what are we actually left with?
What happens to a society when every single business decision is made by a perfectly rational, entirely unemotional algorithm?
If we finally succeed in making every business on Earth perfectly mathematically rational, do we actually make our economy stronger? Or do we strip away the very humanity that gives it a soul? Next time you walk down Main Street and see a fading, objectively inefficient family sign above a door, maybe don't wonder why they haven't sold out to a conglomerate. Wonder what they are protecting and be deeply grateful they are still standing. That's our deep dive for today. Keep questioning the consensus.